Hey there, John Neimeister here with a new video tutorial. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but it's something I'd like to start getting back into. So I did this painting yesterday. It was about a 3-hour speed paint, and I decided to use it to kind of test the waters a little bit with recording and doing the voiceovers and all that. I haven't planned out too much about what I'm going to talk about, so it might get a little bit rambly, but hopefully in the future I'll be able to put together some more structured tutorials. But for now, I hope you enjoy kind of watching the process on this one. So I want to talk a little bit just about kind of the general process to start out with these sort of quick speed paints. I started out with obviously a loose sketch, just kind of blocking in the proportions of the character, which in retrospect I should have worked out the gesture a little bit more, but that's the point of speed paints, is you get to try it and make mistakes and do it different next time. So started out with a loose sketch. You can see here I'm just blocking in some of the big overall forms and shapes and trying to work out my overall composition, get this silhouette to look interesting and figure out how I want these hands to look. Changing her pose a little bit here. You can see I did a little bit of a sketch underneath to figure out where her arm would be, to make sure I wasn't just adding her hand into, some void where it couldn't actually reach. So you can see throughout the video, I'll just be kind of going through now that I've got everything blocked in, and I'll just start kind of refining the elements one by one, cleaning up the edges a little bit and doing a little bit of rendering, hopefully not too much, probably too much. But so here I'm starting to refine the gesture of her pose a little bit. And then from then on, here I got some reference for the hands, which even though it's a speed painting, hands can really make a big impact on an image. So it's always a good idea to shoot some reference. I just used my laptop's webcam and the light in the room. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, but it's better than I probably could have come up with on my own, and it's faster than trying to struggle with drawing a hand from imagination for, half an hour and it still looks like crap. So might as well just spend 30 seconds and shoot some reference and, just go with that. As far as kind of the intention of this painting, it's actually been quite a while since I've done speed paints. When I first started out, it was like all I did. Like, obviously, because of, there's a bunch of artists who will post time-lapse videos like these, and, when I was first getting into art, it was just like, oh man, that's so cool, and that's all I ever wanted to do. So I spent a lot of time on it when I was when I was younger, but as I got into school and started, working more on my draftsmanship and technique and actually learning kind of the formal art making process, I didn't do it quite as much. I, went through the more thorough process of thumbnails and studies and drawings and, final rendering. But it's something I'd like to get back into, just because I think it has a really it's a really good way to just kind of help grow sort of your creative sensibilities. Because the thing with doing finished illustrations is that you're going to spend so much time on them that you want everything to be perfect all the time. At least I do, because I'm a perfectionist. But with something like this, it's a lot easier to just kind of say, okay, this isn't great, but it's kind of cool, so I'm going to go ahead and go forward with it. I noticed a lot lately in my own work that I'd have ideas, but I'd have a really hard time moving forward on any of them, because it's like, oh man, if I'm going to spend, 40 hours working on this illustration, the idea's got to be awesome and the composition's got to be, the best thing I've ever done. And geez, I don't want to spend all this time if it's just going to turn out, garbage. And that would actually kind of, stifle my creativity quite a bit, because I lost that ability to just say, oh, let's try it and see what happens. So I think speed paints, though they definitely can be dangerous in terms of falling in love with techniques and avoiding draftsmanship problems, I think they're probably one of the best ways that you can just kind of unleash your creativity and just practice the art of, coming up with an image and figuring out a composition and trying to get as many interesting ideas in there as possible in as short amount of time as you can. In a way, it's almost like a painted thumbnail. And obviously, the reason behind thumbnails is that you want to explore an idea as much as possible before you get into, doing your 40 hours of drawing and painting. So doing lots and lots of thumbnails will pretty much always give you a better final image. And with something like this, it's basically a thumbnail where you're just doing a quick idea and you don't really care that much if it turns out well or not. But the difference is just kind of you put a little bit more time into finishing it off to the point where it looks like something, that could potentially be a painting. You probably wouldn't post most of your thumbnails in your gallery, but something like this, it's got a charming quality to it, and it's finished enough that, people would probably like looking at it. So I think it's a good way to just kind of practice coming up with an idea, getting it down on paper, and, figuring out some of these compositional problems. And it could be a thing where, the nice thing about it is because they're so quick, you can throw them out if they're not that good, which most of them probably won't be. But if you do happen to like one of them, then, by all means, take it and use it as a starting point for a more finished image. You might finish a speed painting and go, oh man, this pose is a little weird, and, the composition isn't quite working. There's some bizarre tangents and stuff, but I really like this idea, and it just feels really cool. And you might use that and then go through your, more involved process and do some thumbnails and figure it out and draw it out and shoot your reference, and you might get a really nice finished painting that you might not have come up with if you were just kind of doing your regular process of starting everything with thumbnails and finishing it out. So definitely recommend doing these kind of quick works. It's been a while since I've done them, but I'm getting back into it, and I can already tell it's a lot of fun, and it's definitely a good exercise in terms of your creativity. So getting pretty close to the end here. I'm just kind of adding some last final polish, cleaning up edges in the face that I missed, tweaking the last few things. You'll see in a minute here. I'm adding some effects, a little bit of color correction, and some noise and grain and stuff, and that about wraps up. I'll usually finish off with things like this. So add some noise, and here's a couple detail shots of the finished piece. Hope you enjoyed watching this, and be sure to subscribe for future tutorials. Cheers.